Hi everyone! Okay, so this is probably gonna be a kind of weird video to make, a kind of hard video to make, and I just want to quickly put out there a trigger warning for anyone who might be dealing with this, and for anyone, I just want to apologize for my ignorance because sometimes I may say the wrong things, so this is just a little apology in advance. But I was requested to talk about this video on my YouNow because I briefly talked about it with them. I think it would be beneficial to share it with you guys, for anyone who may be struggling with this. So the title of this video, How I Was Brainwashed into Having a Eating Disorder. First of all, I have to begin here. Quickly give you guys the definition of body dysmorphia. So body dysmorphic disorder is an anxiety disorder that causes a person to have a distorted view of how they look and to spend a lot of time worrying about their appearance. For example, they may be convinced that a barely visible scar is a major flaw that everyone is staring at, or that their nose is abnormal. So I'm pretty sure that I developed body dysmorphia in my early preteen. I think to talk about this story, I have to definitely talk about my past with eating disorders or my eating habits. I feel like I've always had food issues and I've always been careful with food, the way that I grew up, also being very insecure the way I grew up. And judging by the title of this video, I'm actually talking about how I was with a group of people in real life who convinced me to vomit, to be bulimic, even though at the time I was already anorexic. These people who I knew in real life, the combination of hanging out with those people and the combination of being in an online pro-anorexia, pro-bulimia community. So it was the combination of these people that I've met, the people I've met online, and my own personal insecurities, and that was just a whole recipe for disaster for me and my well-being. So the reason why I'm making this video is because I feel like you guys can avoid this whole situation by fucking listening to me. So let's start off by saying I'm not trying to victimize myself, because I certainly did put myself in this situation, but when I look back now, I was very young, I was very naive, I was very insecure, and I was looking for acceptance from other people. So this is how I fell into bulimia. Alright, let me start off by saying that when I moved to Taiwan and I was in high school at that time, I already was very insecure about my body. I thought little things like if someone wouldn't pick me as their partner, I thought it was because I was dark-skinned or tan-skinned compared to the people I went to school with, and a lot of these things combined together and made me generally a very insecure person, not only weight-wise. Disclaimer here, a lot of people will say to me, you're so skinny, how can you have developed these eating disorders when you are so skinny? And I have friends who are like, if you call yourself fat, that means I must be obese. And I want to make a disclaimer there that when you have body dysmorphia, it's not you comparing yourself to models or other people most of the time. I mean, obviously there are cases where it can be, and that's a case with me as well. A lot of the times it's you comparing yourself to yourself and knowing that you can do better. I definitely think that any type of eating disorder is a problem with perfectionism, and if you guys haven't already kind of figured it out, I'm a full-blown perfectionist. So when I did develop these weight issues, it wasn't that I wanted to be lighter, and it wasn't that I wanted to be heavier. I just wanted to stay at 44.5 kg. I don't know what drew me to that number. I think that was just a goal that could challenge me. Going through these measures of trying to be as where I wanted to be, exactly how I wanted to be, and it's this control issue that I had. And I honestly think that all these type of disorders are very rooted into a control, because when I developed anorexia, I started controlling the way people looked at me. So for example, I would always eat in school and I'd eat really fast. I would always be talking about food to my friends because I didn't want them to worry about me. So I'd be like, oh my god, let's get seconds, I just finished this meal, let's get seconds. And they'd always be like, oh my god, Lil, she loves eating, how can you say that she has a problem? She's healthy. Same with depression. I'd always be the clown, you know, at the class. I'd always make everybody laugh, always make everybody smile, when deep inside I was broken. And they do go hand in hand. I was convincing my parents that I was eating a lot when I wasn't, and I was convincing people at school that I was eating a lot when I wasn't. My whole time at school, I was not bulimic. I did not vomit, but I had very, very much insecurities about my weight. And this very much developed because of my insecurities and the community that I was hanging out with on Instagram, because these people were telling me that I wasn't skinny enough, I wasn't hurting myself enough, and these were the people that I found a lot of solace in. Like I found a lot of the people in that community to have the same issues as me, and that's why I related with them so much, and that's why it was so easy to believe the things that they were telling me. Also, my mind was very, very clouded because I already had these medications that I was on, medications that was putting weight on me, which made me very, very self-conscious because I was on medication that was putting weight on me, and I see my body changing, and the first thing that happens is panic. So I'm panicking. I'm like, fuck, I'm gaining weight, I'm gaining weight. Some people would tell me, you look healthier, you actually look better, you have more curves. But in my head, I was so convinced that this wasn't what I wanted. These people were just lying to me. I wasn't lying to myself. My eyes wasn't lying to me. I knew my nose was too big and my shoulders were too wide and my thighs would squish every time I sat down. I knew that. But I didn't see it as pretty or beautiful as those things are. They are beautiful, they are pretty, but at the time I was just so insecure that it just went right past. Now comes the part where I left school, and I don't think my parents recognized much of my eating habits, but when I left school I didn't have, you know, this routine, and my routine at school was go to school, eat, come home, and my dad would fast a lot of the times. He did a lot of fasting for Ramadan as well, and he was always on a diet as a child when I was homeless for a bit between the ages of 7 and 9 years old. I was always taught to, you know, ration my food, and that, let's not talk about my childhood, but this period of me vomiting after meals was a very, very short period, but it was a period that very much affected me. So the guy I was seeing at the time was bulimic, and he would vomit at least 5 times a day, especially after meals. Every single meal I saw him eat, he would vomit. My way of showing love to him was buying him food, was buying him, you know, yummy foods, and it a lot of the time just broke my heart watching him get the food, eat the food that I buy him, and then watching him vomit it out. He was so deeply stuck in this eating disorder that every time he would eat something, he wouldn't need to stick his fingers down his mouth. He could just bend over and just puke on demand because he was just so used to doing that. And it was weird for me because I saw this guy that I was seeing as this beautiful person. He seemed lovely. I didn't think he was big or round or fat or anything. I thought he was perfect the way he was because I see people for how they are and not just their physical appearance. And that type of behavior really weirded me out in a way. I knew of bulimia, and for those who haven't picked up on it already, bulimia is when it's an eating disorder where you vomit up the food that you eat. I'm pretty sure there's 2 types of bulimia, but I'm not really sure, and I don't really want to go into that. I don't want to promote any of it. It was really weird because he was 2 years older than me, and I looked at him as an idol as a way, because a lot of the things he did, I tried to follow his steps as well because he was a lot older, and I was just very manipulated by him as well. You know, I wasn't in school, didn't have a proper eating habit because my parents were at work. After I left school, I'm already fucking depressed because I got kicked out of school for being depressed and suicidal, which I'll make a whole video about how the school fucked up. And second, I lost my routine. I mean, luckily, a little bit after that, I found a job that helped me deal with these eating disorders, which I'll tell you about later. Between the time I left school and before I got that job, I was with these group of friends that were friends with the guy I was seeing. Let's say that in this group of friends there was between 4 and 6 of us. Sometimes it would change, like there were other people in it, but it kind of stuck as this main 4. So with the combination of being in this online community where the people I come home to and talk to online were telling me that I was fat and this and that, then to meeting my real life friends with the guy I was seeing. So Jerry was the guy that I was seeing. I'll call him Jerry, okay? I remember his friend, who was a pretty close friend with me, especially after I left school, who I'll call Patricia. So Jerry and Patricia, they were also really close friends, and I was friends with Jerry and also some friends with Patricia, and we kind of came together as a group. And Patricia was seeing this other guy who was in our group as well, and we had other friends who were in this group as well, and we used to run away from home, and we used to, you know, we had similar depressed behavior. Not only was this girl Patricia pro self-harm and would ask me whether I would self-harm and tell me that her blades look pretty and all this stuff like that, she was also bulimic. That's when I kind of fell into an even worse group of people. Because one time we went out to eat, Jerry and Patricia would talk about vomiting after eating all the time. And it wasn't like, oh, I hate that I have to do this. It was like a competition between those two who could like do it more, you know? And Patricia's sister was also bulimic as well. And so we went out to eat. It was me, it was Patricia, and it was her sister. Maybe her boyfriend was there, I'm not sure. But we went out to eat at this place called Chili's. We ate a lot of food. I actually ate absolutely nothing. I don't think I ate anything because they knew about my eating habits, and I felt comfortable enough not to eat instead of pretending to eat in front of them and pretending to enjoy it. That's one bad behavior, because they weren't the kind of friends who were like, eat, come on, just eat it, like it'll make you feel good, like who cares about your weight, blah 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 blah. They were the ones who liked that behavior. Like they would commend me, like clap and be like, oh, you're so good at self-control, you're so good at being skinny because you're not eating. So that was red flag number one, and I didn't see it that way because I was so insecure, so blinded, so naive, and so young compared to these people that I couldn't see that that was a bad group of friends. First, the guy that I was sort of seeing, we're finished our meal and he heads over to the bathrooms and he vomits. He comes back, he sits down, and Patricia's like, did you do it? Did you do it? And he was like, yeah. Right before they were eating, by the way. She kept telling everyone to swallow ice because it would help you feel full. So suddenly I see everyone on the table starting to swallow ice. And I'm sitting there like not eating, and I'm just like, okay, I've never seen this type of behavior before because I never shared my personal eating disorder with other people. It was very, very difficult for me to even talk about it. It's still very difficult for me to talk about it to this very day. I was really shocked that they were so vocal about it, but right after when he came back and she asked him like, did you do it, did you do it? He said yes, and she stood up and went to the bathroom, vomited. And she came back with a smile and she's like, I feel so much better. And he was like, ha, and they like high-fived, and I was like, still really shocked by this behavior. And then Patricia's sister goes to the bathroom and pukes and comes back. They all clap. And then they look at me. I haven't eaten anything. I couldn't have puked, you know, there was nothing to puke, there was nothing to vomit. And they all look at me. I never felt so much peer pressure than I did at that moment, especially considering these people were older than me. So I stood up and I walked to the bathroom. I did not vomit, but when I came back, they asked me if I did, and I said, yes. And I got a clap. And that's where it started. Even though I didn't do it that day, because I wanted to be in that group. And they always kept trying to exclude me because I kept trying to self-care. I kept trying to do better for myself. I found myself a job, which was really, really good. They kept trying to drag me down. I've had so many friends who have seen me do well and been like, I don't want to see her do well, so I'm gonna drag her down. I'm gonna offer her drinks that she doesn't want to drink. I'm gonna offer her smokes that she doesn't want to smoke. I'm gonna offer her drugs she doesn't want to do. They don't want to see me do well, and those aren't true friends. True friends are people who are gonna be like, dude, you don't need that cigarette. You don't need a puke. Dude, you don't need to think that you're this way when in fact you're this amazing person. At that time, I couldn't see that these people were bad friends. And that's why I'm making this video, because some of you guys may be friends with people who are making you do bad things, uncomfortable things, and making you hate yourself. It was especially Patricia, who was kind of the ringleader, because she was already pro self-harm and she knew that I was self-harming at the time. And sometimes she would like touch my scars and be like, oh, they're so beautiful. So every time I would hurt myself, I wouldn't feel ashamed, which I feel like if I felt ashamed of it, I would have stopped a lot quicker. But she kept kind of like applauding me for hurting myself, for following her eating habit ways. The thing about it is that he was letting me watch it, and he was always talking highly of his eating habits and like vomiting after, and kind of bragging about it to Patricia and the rest of the group. Patricia, on the other hand, I was allowed to be more open to her about my self-harm because she did it as well, and she kind of accepted it. She thought it was cool. She thought it was like a way that we bonded. She was definitely pro self-harm and pro eating disorder. She'd always like point out flaws and stuff in front of me, and it was weird because I was very, very insecure, and I'd point out my flaws to myself by myself. I would never say them out loud, but a lot of people knew that deep inside I was insecure. So I wasn't very vocal about my insecurities, but the difference between Patricia was that she was very, very vocal about her insecurities, which actually made me more insecure because she'd say, "Oh my god, look at my love handles," and then I'd think, is that something I need to be worried about? Fuck, like shit. So I'd start worrying about it too. I'd start getting very anxious about it. And she'd say, "Oh, my shoulders are too wide." And then I looked in the mirror and I'm like, well, mine are even wider than yours, so I must be. Everything that she was grooming me into, because she did not have good intentions, was very, very bad, really putting me in a bad place. And I ended up having a lot of hate towards her because when I found self-love again, I directed my hate to myself to her because I understood why I put a little blame on her. Obviously I don't blame her anymore because all the choices I do are for myself, but considering at the time I was 17 and she was 20, me trying to fit in, I left school. I was the only kid who really got kicked out of that school, so a lot of people would think badly of me. Nobody would want to be my friend because they thought I was a bad influence. And so when these older kids started hanging out with me, I wanted to fit in and I wanted them to like me. And I did the things that were against my morals, but at the time I was so insecure, I was so naive. As I got this job, Patricia would always be like, "You never hang out with me anymore, blah, blah, blah," and complain that I'd be working for my future, you know? The place that I worked at was actually a restaurant, and one of my work colleagues there actually kind of knew a little bit about what I was going through, and he definitely helped me a lot with eating. He helped me be less picky with my food, and especially when you work at a restaurant and you see how much food goes to waste, I started thinking to myself, I was like, all that food going to waste could go to people who don't even have food, who don't even have water. And I started to gain this empathy and this relationship with food that wasn't, ew, I don't want it in my body, I don't want to gain weight, I have to count these calories because I'm a control freak. Instead, it became, this is food and I don't want it to go to waste because there's someone else in the world who deserves it more than I do. That helped me stop disrespecting the food that I was eating. And that time where I developed bulimia was probably 2 months in total, I think, where I was doing it, and I can say that I was only doing it maybe once a day, maybe even twice a day. Once a day was usually it compared to the other people in that horrible group that I call somewhat a cult because they molded me in many different ways that wasn't right. I like to think back about people's behaviors, and I was thinking about Patricia's, and I understood that it must have been a household issue considering that I'm pretty sure both of her siblings also were struggling with this eating disorder. But then I was looking back at some old messages, trying to show some evidence where they were peer pressuring me. I didn't look back much, but I did find some screenshots where she openly talks about her eating habits and that I clearly am uncomfortable with this topic, for example. And looking back, I actually found even more disturbing messages where she was clearly very suicidal as well. So I could tell that she may not have had the greatest intentions with me, but I could tell that she was very, very broken at the time too. For example, these messages were very, very clingy likewise because there are many times where I tried to separate with the group and also had their own insecurities as well, and I thought I should just put my 2 cents in. The reason why I'm making this long ass video is because there may be a ton of people who could tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not pretty enough, that you're not skinny enough, that you have to be this perfect mold of what society wants you to be, and that there isn't anything else but this ideal fix that you have to be. And people can tell you that. The media can tell you that. But it is your job to think that you are so much more important than the products that you are buying that were designed to make you buy them. Beauty products are designed to make you buy them, is that they have beautiful models on the front covers and stuff, and you look at the beautiful models and you're like, why can't I have that great skin? I have to buy these products. When in reality, those models have been airbrushed, they're already been edited, and they probably have the best dermatologists out there. And in reality, everything, especially media-wise, is to make you feel shit about yourself so you can buy their products to make yourself feel better. Once you realize that all these gimmicks are disgusting and are just... Sorry, my camera cut out, but what I was trying to say is that all these marketing gimmicks, business ideas to make money for their company, when you realize that that's all they fucking are, and that they don't care about the quality of your skin or the smoothness of your hair, and in fact put products in it that make your skin or your hair drier than it is, so that it makes you go back to those products. Once you realize how fucked up everything kind of is, then the only person you can rely on is yourself, and you start taking better care of yourself, because it's not about your physical appearance. It is about being healthy. It is about being addicted to being healthy. It is about eating vegetables, eating right, eating good foods for you, enough foods for you with good fucking vitamins in it. That's all that matters. Because once you feel good, for example, if you eat meat, all the depressed animal feelings are in that meat because they're caged up and they hate their lives and they're depressed, and you're consuming that. You're consuming that energy, and that makes you so depressed and upset because you're taking the death of animals and putting it in your mouth. If you start, eating healthy, it is about self-care and self-love. Everything in this world is designed to make you hate yourself, feel trapped, to feel locked as if there are limits, to convince you that there are limits to what you can do. The only limit is your imagination. And to those who are suffering from eating disorders at the moment, what I'm trying to say is that it's not going to be easy just to stop thinking a way that you have for so long. Because it wasn't easy for me to get over this body dysmorphia. When your brain has been wired for so long to think, I am this way, I'm this way, I'm this way, everybody tells me my body is this way, my face is this way, when in fact it's not. It's hard to rewire your brain in such a way to love yourself and accept yourself for who you are. I'm not saying that it's easy. What I'm trying to say is that don't ever, ever, ever let anybody tell you what your body should look like, what your face should look like, what you should wear, how you should style yourself, how you should have your hair colored or cut. Nobody should ever tell you that, and if they do and they're serious, then you don't need those people in your life. You don't need those people telling you that this is how you're supposed to be. You are exactly how you are supposed to be. However you dress yourself, that is exactly how you're supposed to be, and maybe it might not be the way you want it to be. Don't make your goal to be skinnier. Make your goal healthier. Make your goal feel better. I'm gonna wrap this up because this video is about 30 fucking minutes long. Anyone who's in a pro self-harm, pro anorexia community, please get the fuck out of it. Have friends motivate you in a healthy way. Those friends are the ones that care about you. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. I love you guys so much. Please have a good day.